There's safety first and then quality. Safety and then quality. Those are the top two things that's the only thing we think about when as a group of employees. We know those are the two most important things.
If you're bringing the right vendor on board who understands that they need to work within a target budget, the design architect also has flexibility in their design intent to work collaboratively to get to that budget and get to a design intent that everyone is happy with, you're going to have a better project and it's going to meet the budget. There's going to be no unknowns at, GMP time.
So we're back with this same roundtable over here, and it's actually been a year since the first podcast. So welcome back, gentlemen. And the first conversation was really around prefabrication and tying in all of our collective experience, and Alex from the design community aspect in multiple markets, and Mo having experience on a subcontractor level, all the way from project management to manufacturing to the sales and business development side of things. And really kind of what I think would be interesting to start with is maybe some lessons learned since that first conversation when we got together. I'm sure everybody's sort of perspective on the industry, skill sets, outlook has evolved since then, as this market continues to shift. So maybe Mo, let's start with you. How have you changed, or what are some I don't know, how would you recap this past year?
I would say that it's been exciting. What I've had to learn is how to temper that excitement and understand that the economy moves and changes just like that. That's the best way to put it. So yeah, I guess what I've learned is you have to be adaptable, and you have to be able to be willing to shift your focus very quickly from one aspect of the market to another. So for me, we were heavy into multifamily, and so was Alex. I mean, we were office and multifamily was strong, multi-use, and I had to pivot to institutional and industrial very, very quickly, just to keep the ball rolling. And so there's this little bit where I had where I was trying to balance the continuing to try and educate the marketplace on the benefits of prefabrication and understanding how precast has changed, the introduction of new mixed designs, the Gate Lights infinite facade system, and how you apply it. All these are custom products that still it still requires us to be in front of people like Alex and his coworkers, associates, to teach them how to use these systems, because it's not, when architects graduate and they come out of school and they've been working for the first few years, we are a foreign concept for the most part. So you still have the responsibility of that part of your job description, so to speak, but you're also responsible for selling work. So I've had to learn how to balance those two things this year, and it's been difficult because my drive and what makes me happy in my work is educating the marketplace. So yeah.
Is it primarily because you're so front facing now that you're just seeing it firsthand? Has there been a 12-month period in your career where it has been this dynamic where you've had to remain agile and just sort of bounce around depending on what the market wants?
This one was pretty quick. I've been through a few of them. So post 9/11, post 2008, and then we had another one about 4 years after that where it wasn't quite as bad. So we've had these dips in the past, but this one was fast and quick. We went from all out, do it as fast as you can, to just off like a water hose. So this one was pretty abrupt, a lot like 2008. Yeah.
And how do you keep, maybe I'll shift this to you, Alex, in terms of keeping sort of company culture and office positivity and excitement and enthusiasm when you're shifting and changing, either in the volume of work or the type of work you're doing? obviously, if you're trying to build a company culture and a team and a focus in a certain sector or market or area, it's easy to really build this and build upon momentum. But when you have to sort of remain so dynamic and go wherever you can or to whoever will have you, it requires a certain attitude within the group. So does that resonate with you at all? How has that been managing the team?
Yeah, I would share Mo's sentiments. Like we had to shift a lot in terms of the programs that we're working with as well, but also from a geography standpoint. Um, Fortunately, we've been investing a lot of time and effort in work in the Middle East, and now that is booming. And it's also work that is in practice areas that in Atlanta we were not necessarily doing, but they're adjacent to the multifamily work that we had been doing a lot of. So we've shifted a lot of our staff to working on hospitality projects now, and hospitality projects in the Middle East is a big focus. Locally, we've been shifting to healthcare, senior living, and mission critical projects. So, some of those, there's a lot of easily transferable knowledge from commercial and multifamily work. But I think it's, at least I would say this is for the younger staff as well as the seasoned staff. It's exciting to work on something new, but it's also can sometimes be a little anxiety ridden when you're trying to learn how a new product kind of fits into the things that you have normally done. And I think, one of the good things about some of the slowdown in the commercial markets in the past couple of years, and I would say it slowed down from a real project standpoint. It didn't really slow down from a pursuit standpoint. So we're still doing a lot of pursuits and a lot of master plans and rezonings, right? But from that master plan phase to, okay, we're really going to start moving on design, that length has stretched out considerably, right? But during that period, we've gotten a little bit more creative. Also had time to think about things. So there were some really interesting conversations that we had internally, had with Mo, when we said, how can we give back to our local communities in a different manner? And so we've developed this studio with Georgia Tech it's all about facade design, and particularly having to do with precast, and it's going amazing. Like, I think that's been invigorating our staff a lot. Like, so even though we have a lot of staff who are working with other practices, other offices, we're kind of all working on this thing together. So that's kind of really united us together.
Yeah, it's sort of, as I think about it, as HKS is really, like, call it a premier firm in the industry, known throughout the country, but obviously worldwide. And then Gate, obviously, from a sort of national recognition of high-end precast producer. Over decades and decades, I would think you have to remain agile or able to maneuver and pivot as needed. And you can see it, what you guys have done to be able to go from structural work to data center work to architectural work and service different markets. That seems like it is critical to the sustainability of things. But if you think about, like, so that's what the past 24 months has required, but now moving forward, what do the next 24 months look like? And where's your head at right now? How are you going to attack the market, and sort of what do you want to, forgetting with what's happened in the past, how do you want to attack the market moving forward?
I have to say that right now, I'm pretty excited about the marketplace. We've had 2 interest rate drops. The election is over. And regardless of how you feel about that post-election, the outcome or whatever, once it's settled, regardless of which way it goes, there's movement. And so that's what I'm starting to see is, it was so interesting now at this point in my career. Like you mentioned, I've been doing this a minute. I have a lot more interaction with the owners and developers than I ever thought I would. It's things have changed where there's more interaction between me and ownership. Um, early programming level, and that is giving me a better read on being able to project. And in our business, in the precast industry, where we rely on backlog and we rely on planning for be able to, like for instance, with Lee this morning, we were talking about the forecast and we were looking at the plant, and we still have two very big long line beds set up where we make data center wall panels. We do have some of that work in the backlog, but we also have a tremendous amount of architectural work. So finding the right balance for that and planning on whether or not we need to do another building, or if we need to expand part of our facility, or do we want to maneuver the long line beds, what do we, those are the things. Being able to have really, really strong intelligence and being able to forecast to the marketplace is becoming paramount as we start to make major critical decisions about infrastructure. What I'd have to say about my role right now is that 50% of my job is business development and education, but just as important right now, I'm spending so much time gathering proper intel and being able to get a good read on what's happening in the marketplace. So the question that you're asking, what do I think is happening in the marketplace? It's exciting. That I've been spending a lot of time gathering that intel and getting real information, and there are projects moving forward that a year ago or 6 months ago that I would have been very skeptical. But I do not feel that way today. I feel very bullish on what the next 24 months are going to look like, and I'm really excited about it. And there's some really interesting designs that are going to stretch our systems, and it's going to I'm looking forward to being able to document this for the next 24 months and use that collateral to show people like Alex and everybody in his office, hey, because these new jobs are really going to be groundbreaking, and they're very complicated, and there's a lot of articulation in the faces of the panels, but yet still doing prefabrication.
Groundbreaking or breaking ground?
Groundbreaking, because
yeah,
think about it.
Well, yeah. Well, so before, if you, so to keep the conversation within the context of this group, it's probably primarily focused on new construction, and Mo is predominantly talking about the greater Nashville market. Just for context for everybody, that's where he serves. And on a job that you're looking at, so new construction bucket, and likely it's incorporating some form of prefabrication since you're a precaster. So how would you categorize these projects that you're looking at in terms of end user, type of design team, type of owner that's interested in that type of product? If you had to put a bucket around all these projects you're pursuing and going after, what does that client profile look like?
It's multifamily, it's hospitality, it's multi-use, and dorms. So each one of those that I just named those are the markets that we have been trying to educate, that we've been trying to because the system that we've been working on and developing and marketing, it suits those types of projects the best, even more than it would office, which has in the past has been our dominant market. The way we're approaching it now, it's much more for the ones that I just named. So, I mean, I mentioned groundbreaking earlier. I never really thought that I would ever see us make a wall panel with a bay window integrated into the wall panel, pre-glazed with louvers. I mean, that's something that 10 years ago I would never have imagined we would be producing, or even bidding for that matter.
Why would somebody categorize a precaster as office buildings in lieu of, as you said, affordable multifamily housing, student housing, hospitality?
That's a good question for Alex, honestly.
Oh, that, that is a good question. I mean, I think we talked about this a little bit on the last podcast, and I kind of, to reiterate a little bit, it does seem a little counterintuitive, right? Because prefabrication, it's most conducive to programs that are going to easily stack, right? Which hotels and apartment buildings do that. Office buildings do as well, but it just seems a little strange that you wouldn't, as a contractor, want, or as an owner, make that connection and say, I can do this building more efficiently, I can build it quicker, I can build in randomness into the facade, even though it's stacking, by using a prefabricated system. It's a little strange. And I think we've, through a lot of the projects Mo and I have had in planning together, you can prove that it's cost effective for all of those program types if you are doing it correctly, and if you're involving the vendors early in the process, right? If you can make those decisions up front in a timely manner about what kind of system you're going to investigate or what kind of system you're going to use, you can more easily work to a budget because it's a known quantity. If you're doing design assist or a design assist light kind of scenario, it's a lot easier to make these things work for a budget and not have unknowns happen when the GC is pricing things later, because a good chunk of that pricing is done in tandem with the design, right?
Yeah.
And it works well for office, for multifamily, for hotel, for medical office, for lots of things.
The way a lot of projects get priced is that Alex works on a set of drawings, there's Office works on a set of drawings, they put out an SD set of documents. We get a very limited view through the eyes of the general contractor to price something. And usually the pricing window is fairly short. We usually get about 2 weeks to put something together while we're trying to manage pricing on maybe a half a dozen other projects at the same time. So there's a lot of assumptions that have to be made. There's a lot of guesswork in so there's a lot of details where we have to assume something is going to take place. And with that word assumption comes money, cost, contingency. So ultimately, we could end up pricing ourselves out of the job, and we would never know it. But if we're working in tandem with Alex, he's understanding how to draw our product in the most efficient way, and he's getting real-time information from us is that, no, that's going to make it more expensive, or yes, that's a good move, or we can lean into this type of design because it fits better with the way that we're going to construct that mold. And so when the drawings come out, we know everything. We're able to fine-tune that pricing and leverage the most from the material, and that's how these things have worked. That's why
I'm gonna sort of play devil's advocate on the pricing side, just because
sure.
I'm gonna ask some dumb questions, but assume that some members don't know all the things that all three of us necessarily know around doing some of these exercises so many times. But Alex, when you're putting together a drawing set for pricing, I've heard some prefabricators or panelizers say, oh, if it's not built for a prefabricated system, we're not going to price it, or if it's not drawn or designed for. If you're designing a hotel or multifamily project with just a lot of repetition, is there a way to detail it or draw it such that if the GC wants to go panelized, or if the GC wants to go traditional, just stick built construction, it can work for either or? Like, do these jobs have to be drawn as a panelized system? Does it have to be one or the other? Or can you draw it in such a way that it can be left open to the market and, best bid as it's most advantageous to the team?
I would say yes, you can do it that way. And I'm thinking of a project from a long time ago that I worked on. We did that. I would say you probably lose a little bit of cost efficiency by doing that, like by designing it in a super flexible way that it could go both ways. You're probably doing two things. You're losing some cost effectiveness, like you're not taking advantage of either system, right? Of either the stick built or the prefabricated system. You're also losing, I don't know, there's like an opportunity, a design opportunity for going either way, right? So and we've had a recent project like this that I know Mo has been involved in. It was not necessarily designed as precast, but they wanted to see if it was going to work as precast, and it just did not work, right? So
Sure. Yeah.
there was a design intent that was great, but it was not going to be conducive to translating directly to precast work. So you need to be flexible enough to be able to adapt it to work for that, and then you can take advantage of the cost efficiencies of the prefabrication. But it wasn't necessarily done that way initially, so there was a lot of reworking to make it really work for the system that they wanted to price it as. But it wasn't the same project that it started out as. But I mean, yes, you can do it, but it's, I don't know. I think that there's a misconception sometimes about if I bring, as an owner or a contractor, if I bring a single source vendor on board early, that I'm going to lose the competitiveness in the bid process. And that may be true for certain things, but I think if you're bringing the right vendor on board who understands that they need to work within a target budget, the design architect also has flexibility in their design intent to work collaboratively to get to that budget and get to a design intent that everyone is happy with. You're going to have a better project, and it's going to meet the budget. There's going to be no unknowns at GMP time. So,
But how far along can you go in the drawing process where, I mean, I don't want to name the specific project, but Mo, the one in Nashville that we lost recently,
Yeah.
where maybe the city is sold on a certain design and then they onboard somebody and it takes a 10, 15, 20% shift in a little bit of the design intent. But for the most part, it's captured. I mean, can you do a lot of that work, Alex, 70% of that work, maybe up until, I don't know, 50% DDs or something, then onboard somebody, and then maybe you make a little minor tweaks to cater towards their system. But I guess, Mo, I've heard you say sometimes, like, if you're not involved in a certain point in SDs, it's probably too late. But is that really true? Like, can you come on in DDs and make a couple shifts and make it work?
Whew. I've had a hard time. Um, things have to go really south. If somebody's drawing something, like if somebody makes the decision to take a masonry facade, for example, if a general contractor makes the decision to go in that direction, and they're going to build their site and their logistics plan centered around a masonry facade, that's a big shift to go to a precast facade. Chances are good the hoisting is going to change. The site laydown area is going to change. So there's got to be a real reason. Like they have to run into a problem with laydown space. They lose access somewhere where they thought they were going to get access. Pricing comes in so high that they can't make it pencil. It just me coming and meeting, more or less the same price range and offering a faster facade sometimes isn't enough. They've invested so much in this other system. And that's what I mean when I say that you really have to be involved early. It's because of that. If they've centered a facade around a certain product, it's like they're shoehorned in there sometimes. And so when the boot is on the other foot and it's me that's in that position, I'm working really hard to make it work for the team. And so if someone else is in that same role, they're going to do the same thing. But sometimes it doesn't work. Like in the case with the project you're referring to, we couldn't make that one work. But it was a quick investigation. If you'll remember that, I think that only lasted 3 or 4 weeks. And I was real quick to tell them this is going to be a hard lift. So you can usually when it's going to be a good fit and when it's not. And that's one thing I've been better about. I've been so hopeful in my career that I could always make it work, and sometimes it doesn't. And I've recognized that someone like Alex, his time is so valuable. I do not want to waste any of their design time. If I don't think it's going to work, I've learned that it's better long term for me to cut bait and go ahead and tell the team, hey man, this is going to be a heavy lift. I don't know if we can make this work, and take the hit, because there's always another project. and it's better to treat your client base with respect in that way. Don't be so selfish.
So if I can tag on to that. So we had a project about a year and a half ago that we were trying really hard to make precast and make it prefabricated with Mo. And it was not working, and Mo told us that. And so we investigated a whole bunch of other systems to make it work. But I think, I would not say it was this project that caused this solution, but through another project that you guys are doing, you developed a new way of detailing prefabricated modules. And now the good thing, because the project we were working on was on hold, when it comes back, now we can take advantage of the technology that you guys developed on this other project. And I think we can make that original project actually prefabricated, precast, preglazed, where we couldn't have done that a year and a half ago because the technology wasn't there yet. Whoever dreamed up that innovative detailing solution, but now it exists. So if we can do a little positive spin to the slowdown in the market, it's going to help some of these projects that were on hold because there's been some new advancements in technology that now will make these things possible. So
if you guys could operate in any other market in the country, where would it be?
That's kind of easy for me, I think. I mean, I spent 15 years working in New York. I would, I don't actually, I said it's easy. Now I'm not so sure because I also spent time working in Toronto, which is also amazing. I think there are some municipalities, some urban areas that value innovation, creativity, and high design more than others. And I think, those are two of them that I think of immediately. It was less difficult to have these creative conversations with developers who are doing work in New York and Toronto than it is in a lot of other locations.
Yeah. And if you would have asked me that question 2 years ago, my immediate answer would have been New York. Because they have readily accepted precast as an option in New York, and pre-glazing is just a matter of doing business in New York at this point, post One South First and some of these other projects. So, but I have enjoyed the way that the architecture community in Nashville has been so welcoming, because it's been a while since I've been new to a market, and I've really enjoyed working there, and I've really enjoyed developing relationships with the design teams there. It's a great community, and I'd have to say that I'm working where I would like to work.
And maybe a different way of thinking about that as an architect is less about the geography that the projects are located in and more about the client, right? We do projects for Lincoln all over the United States, and I would say more or less, no matter where those projects are located, they tend to be more innovative, right? We've got projects with Lincoln in Dallas, LA, Seattle. I would say none of them are hitting roadblocks based on the geography, right? That client likes to push boundaries, and it doesn't really matter where their project is.
Well, yeah, I mean, the call you had this morning, Mo, on the project in Nashville, that's probably a client who's newer to the market, and that's bringing a product to the market that's not really business as usual to the market. So that's a perfect example of that. In terms of that, I like that answer with New York and Toronto being a little more progressive from a design standpoint. How do you think local codes play into that? Because Alex, I'm sure I operate in New York and Boston a lot, and Boston has some of the most stringent, way more so than New York, stringent energy codes at the moment, and it's really, really, really driving high performance or sophisticated execution on the construction site in terms of having to pass their blower door testing and air tightness testing. And so it just requires a higher level of sophistication, not only from a detailing standpoint, but also execution on site from designers all the way to the contractors. Do you think codes play into that a lot in terms of like pushing the boundary with design?
Definitely. So Toronto is a good example of that. Toronto is much more advanced in terms of their sustainability regulations than a lot of municipalities in the US. And but it's a little bit unfair, I think, to use a, a different country than the US because their investment scenario is a lot different than the
Yeah.
United States, right? So projects in Toronto, there's an expectation first that it's going to take a long time for entitlements. There's also an expectation, at least if you're talking about multifamily, you're going to do a lot of pre-sales before you even put a shovel in the ground. So there's more of a guarantee of that funding source, which doesn't necessarily happen in the US. So those things are all built into those developers' pro formas. And it's a known quantity. They know they're going to have to deal with this stuff. So I've had projects in Toronto that, I mean, I left that office that was working on those things 8 years ago. Those projects are just now in construction. Like they knew it was going to take that long to get through entitlements and pre-sales and everything. And it has a lot to do with just the way that the banking system works there is very different. But kind of getting back to the US, we've had projects in the Southwest that were academic oriented mixed use. And those municipalities had very, very stringent energy performance and other sustainability requirements. And that forced us as designers to, and it was a good thing, right? To be more creative in how we're going to comply with those things. So something that we could normally do, let's say in Atlanta, there's no way we were going to be able to do that in Arizona because of the more strict regulations. We had to be investigating double facades and solar shading and all of this stuff in order to comply with the requirements. There were requirements that every orientation had to kind of adapt and conform to their solar orientation. So there was a kind of inherently in their regulations built-in variety to the architectural design, which was really nice and refreshing to be able to be challenged with those things and ultimately come up with better designs and better places for people.
So I have a question for Alex. I'm going to turn this a little bit on you, Adrian. Um, what causes that in the more strict enforcement of codes or the more strict codes in the Southwest? Is that because of the cost of energy, or is it I mean, what is it?
Well, for that,
Because you got Atlanta. Atlanta views it in one way, and we have. I mean,
yeah,
Georgia Power and Southern companies. I mean, the power is affordable. They've got Plant Vogtle where they've got nuclear energy. Energy is more plentiful, and it's not quite as expensive as it is, say, out west. Is that the driving force behind that? I mean,
I
what causes that?
I think some of that, like depending on who the entitlements have to go through. Yes, I
Gotcha.
think that's some of it. But for that particular project I'm thinking of, it was because it was more of an academic oriented campus. There were just values that that institution had that were going above and beyond what like the local city authority may be requiring, right? But I
That's
think,
good to know.
kind of from a general overview, yes, a lot of times it has to do with the cost of energy. If it's not expensive, then a lot of places are not going to worry about that as much, which is unfortunate.
Yeah,
There's a
I would
lot,
agree.
there's a lot buried into the California local codes that you otherwise wouldn't know when it comes to energy performance. I mean, recyclability content. Yeah, so I mean, I think you're dealing with different dynamics in every respective jurisdiction. But yeah, no,
And something else, um, Adrian, on this topic, and I'm sitting here, Alex brought up working overseas, and I think about our market and where we normally target. People work with precast sometimes because they know that we have such a resilient product, and it has such great thermal performance, um, but not necessarily the cheapest. So if somebody's building for a 20-year pro forma, and they're not looking past that 20-year time period, they might view our product as not optimal. So when you're looking at like what Alex was just talking about university work, working on that's more institutional, and those people. I mean, I talked about a project earlier this week where we were looking at it as a total precast option, where we had every other floor that was completely open, that in 20 years they could reprogram the entire building and convert it from dorm space to classroom building, if the need arised. And so, when you travel to places like Barcelona and Madrid, in that same vein, those buildings that are there have been there for decades, and it's because they invested so much in their buildings,
Yeah,
and
but
the new construction is still that same way.
doesn't it come down to the quality of the workmanship? I mean, at the end of the day, isn't it just steel and mud? And I mean, we're just aluminum and insulated glass units. I mean, you talk about being like a AA certified precaster versus not, and having
Yeah.
really good high quality caulkers. I've watched you do videos. Look at the sealant joint 20 years later, it's still intact. But it's because you hired a really good quality caulker. Your
Yes.
concrete is a certain mix design strength, so it can withstand certain loads over time and weathering and so forth. So, like, just to put, I mean, it's tough. Obviously, you want to push precast, let's be honest, but like to put precast in a bucket and say precast is a good material. Well, if you're working with a high quality precaster, just like,
Yeah.
just like working with a glazer and all this at the end of the day,
Yeah.
I feel like without the quality execution on site, it can all be diminished at the end of the day.
You're absolutely right, Adrian. That's one of the reasons why we get the nod on some higher end buildings sometimes without it even going to market, is because there is an expectation that Gate is going to produce a level of quality that is suitable for the cover of architectural record. And that means that we have a reputation to maintain. And our reputation in the industry is paramount above everything else that we think about. So, there's safety first and then quality. Oh, wow. Did you just see that? Did you see that?
Yeah, I
Thumbs up
didn't know
emoji?
safety. We
How
got the
cool is
thumbs
that?
up back there. Yeah.
That's awesome. So, there's safety first and then quality. Oh, wow. Did you just see that? Did you see that?
Yeah, I
Thumbs up
didn't know
emoji?
safety. We
How
got the
cool is
thumbs
that?
up back there. Yeah.
That's awesome. So, safety and then quality. Those are the top two things that's the only thing we think about when as a group of employees. We know those are the two most important things. Profitability comes after that.
Yeah, I just bring this up because this group particularly, I think, spends so much time up front, putting in time into the design, into the planning of the project, into making sure the project gets over the finish line. And then I think at times, we don't put as much emphasis into the actual execution on the job site because we're focused on the next design, the next project.
Yeah.
People like Scott Haw and others, are left fixing all the problems on the construction site. So, I think there's that's why I always talk about like all this testing done on site, all the accountability on site, because you could detail the perfect building, you could manufacture the perfect panelized wall, but if you mess up those caulk joints on site, if you damage the panels, if you damage the windows, if you don't care for everything, if you don't care for protect the welding on site, all the underlying issues that could come up later on.
Yeah.
I would say that's definitely true. We've got a project right now where it's just completed construction. We had obviously getting towards the deadline, lots of little issues that came up, and there were some great subcontractors, some who were not so great, and still made it through the finish line. But I will never forget that there was a problem with a precast panel that I didn't even notice. Mo or someone else on his team noticed it, and they fixed it without even us asking them to fix it. It wasn't on a punch list. So, you want subcontractors like that on your job who are going to have, there's an integrity in, wanting to see great finished work, and they're going to fix it even if we don't notice it.
Mo, you owe me. I just got your 30-second snippet for your lunch and learns from now on. But
Well,
Thanks
hey,
for coming.
look, if you can't, I never have thought of myself as not walking the walk. So, you talk the talk, you got to walk the walk. And thank goodness I've got people like Lee Baker and Nate Brooks and Joey Langham and Chris Cruz that are, and there are other, those are my guys. But I mean, you go down to Florida and you got Bruce Barcher and all of his staff, Chris Hermanson. Mike Trossett down there benefits from a very strong operational staff. I benefit from an operational staff, and the folks out west in Texas, they benefit from a strong operational staff. That makes the sales guys, I mean, I hate to even call myself a sales guy, but I am representing that part of the business, and my job is made so much easier because of the countless precedents that we have in the marketplace that I can lean on and show people an example of a building that's been up for 20 plus years and it still looks fantastic, and the caulk joint is still the original caulk joint and it has no signs of having to be replaced. The finishes, all you have to do is pressure wash it every 5 years, and the thing is performing like a rock star. And that starts with people like Alex, who is detailing a building correctly, that is designing and using precast in the proper way, because
Remember
he's,
to include a drip edge over the
yeah,
window.
exactly, things like that. I mean, it's quality and craftsmanship and a focus on those things, and living up to the expectations of our leadership, who put the focus squarely on safety and quality.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
thank you both for coming on. It was fun catching up again, and maybe we'll do this again in 1 year and see if Mo is still riding his high.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not riding high, just you have to
Optimistic.
be able to move. You have to
Optimistic.
be able to move with the ebb and flows of the marketplace. And hey,
Adaptability is key right now.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
All right. Cheers, guys.
All right, great. Thank you.
Cheers.